And here we go. Main segment of the show. We have Newton's Law. And we have a special guest here. And not a lot of people has the voice to match the persona. And if this young man, or this OG in the game, as we call him, when he speaks, you know exactly who it is. I present to some and introduce to others. Dan Patrick, how we doing?
I'm doing great. I feel like I should, bring my voice down a little bit lower, like Barry White.
Man, listen, that right there is something that cannot be taught. But not to prolong the time, my question is this: how do you feel about the rise of Black-owned or like athlete-owned content in this space of media right now?
I just like athletes taking control. No matter, white or black. I remember when Tiger Woods, he wasn't really good at press conferences. He didn't like doing that. And I go, at some point, he's going to take control of his own content. And then he eventually did. And more athletes should do that. Therefore, nothing's lost in translation. You're able to control exactly what you want to say. You put it out there. There's no gotcha. Nobody's steering you into a direction that you don't want to go. This is my opinion, this is my space, and I'm going to send it out. And I think that more athletes should do that. And it really started, at least for me, with Tiger Woods.
Absolutely. So for that being the stance from the athlete's perspective, I'm very curious, as I followed your career for so long, being at adolescent and growing up in the ranks of sports, seeing you on a very popular platform in ESPN. Now you're independent. How was that transition for you?
Well, I needed it. I had to get my ass kicked a little bit because at ESPN, I call it, people talk about beer muscles. People drink some beers, then they act tough. At ESPN, you have ESPN muscles where you think you're maybe better than what you really are. Right. And I think I'd gone as far as I could go. And then I had to kind of figure out, what did I want to do with the rest of my career? And that's why I bet on myself. That was it. And not many people leave ESPN by their own choice.
Yes, sir.
But I knew if I was going to get better, that I had to do it on my own. And the first 3 years we did the show in my attic. All of my guys came upstairs. My wife would be there with the kids, getting them out the door to school, and they'd come up the back steps, and we'd do the show there for 3 years. And so I didn't leave ESPN and all of a sudden walk into this unbelievable man cave, but I'm glad I did. I was in the attic because we built a camaraderie, a team friendly show. And I think that's what made it work, that we were around each other, trusted each other. And, the bottom line is we wanted to make a great show.
Absolutely. I think really for me, a lot of people have seen my personality as such an early phase of my career and knew from the outfits, from the fashion, from the press conferences and things like that, even with on-field performances, that I don't think if I had the ability to be independent to show my trueness as a personality in front of the camera. I would always tease my agent at the time. I was like, yo, Carlos, I do not want to be a sports analyst. And here I am, in that realm of sports analysts, using my own platform to produce media in its own right. I'm always curious to kind of know, you've been covering sports for such a long time. My next question is, what's the best era, in your opinion, of sports?
Oh, I'm fond of the 80s because I was able to cover when Larry Bird was with the Celtics and Magic was with the Lakers. The New York Mets were great. Doc Gooden and Darryl Strawberry. There were just so many events Big East basketball was awesome.
Yeah.
And to be able to be around that. And I was in New York at the time, so I got to see a lot of different things. So I think hands-on wise, that was a lot of fun. But each decade or generation, then you have a generational player or generational team. So it just goes, I was there to cover Jordan, all of those championships when I was at ESPN. I got to talk to him after he won those championships. Yeah. And you're part of history. And that's why I got into the business. Like, you have to love doing that. I've been doing it for 40 years. You have to love it. And there are times when you go, this isn't interesting. I got to make it interesting. I don't
Right.
want to go to work. I get to go to work. Suck it up.
Right.
But then there are other days, most of the days, where it just unfolds right in front of you, and you're like,
Right.
"This is stealing. This is fun,"
Layup.
and that's what you need to get. And when you said you don't want to be a football analyst, or you want to be a sports personality, is what you
Correct.
want to be, because
Absolutely.
analysts kind of put you in a
Behind the
smaller
desk
category.
yeah.
You want to be more than that.
Absolutely. Even, to not prolong the time, I'm curious to know what your Mount Rushmore of sports personalities look like. If you can build a juggernaut type of team, and when you say different eras from the 80s, 90s, 70s, the early 2000s or whatever, when you say personality, they brought the entertainment to sports. Give me your top 4.
So we're talking about athletes.
Athletes as a whole.
Okay. Personalities. I would put Mike Tyson on there. Because I got to cover him. I was there when he won fights
Right.
when he was fighting Michael Spinks, when he fought Joe Frazier's son. I was ringside for those things, and to watch that, to see that, man. And he was interesting. He was somebody that I think has a lot to say. He's sensitive, but then he get in there and he just wanted to kill you. He truly wanted to kill you. And
you could tell.
That to me, when you start with that, Muhammad Ali was another one that everybody emulates Muhammad Ali. Like
Right.
that dude was so bad, yes, in a good way. He'd be like, "I'm going to tell you to your face when I'm going to knock you out," and then he would do it. But he had charisma. God, he was a good-looking guy, had charisma, and I just, and later in life when he was dying, I got a chance to be around him. Now, he couldn't communicate, but he did give me a pair of boxing gloves. And, he was just, he went from somebody who was vilified because he wouldn't fight in the war in Vietnam,
Right.
came back, got his title. People still didn't like him. And then you go to the Atlanta Olympics when he's lighting the torch and he's shaking because of Parkinson's. And everybody is like, they fell in love with Muhammad Ali late in his career. And he just had this interesting trajectory. So I'd put those two fighters up there.
Right.
Let's see. As far as personalities in basketball, I would say Jordan, but he didn't really act that way the way he did in The Last Dance. I'd put Charles Barkley there.
No. Okay. Auburn.
Your Auburn boy in there.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Chuck.
But I would put Chuck in there because he, from start to finish, and I think I first met him in 91, he has been the same person. And that's all I want as somebody who's interviewing somebody. I just want you to shoot me straight.
Yes,
I may
sir.
not like what you're going to tell me,
Yes,
but
sir.
I want you. I love that you will tell me. So I would have Charles in there. I'd have Ali. I'd have Tyson. Let's see. Anybody else that comes to mind? Great person. I'd probably throw Serena in there. I'd get her perspective on things. Yeah. Because once again, that's different.
That's a trailblazer.
How she grew up.
Yes.
To maintain that level of greatness, have a baby, win a major when you're pregnant. They're just, she changed the game. Martina Navratilova changed the game back in the 80s with that power. And then Serena changed Martina's game with even more power. And the personality, she was polarizing. So I'd probably throw, I don't know if you thought that I would mention either of those 4.
I did not. I did not.
Right.
But to my conclusion of this segment, thank you again for doing this. So many people have been asking me, Cam, when are you going back? Or even on your platform, how many teams have I reached out to? And my last question for you, Mr. Dan Patrick, as a GM per se, what would you think the reason why Cam Newton is not on an NFL team? Shoot me straight, as you just said.
Wait, you just went third person. that would make me nervous as a GM that you're going to go third person with me.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this way. How and why do you think I am not on an NFL roster right now?
I think you're too big of a personality. If I'm bringing you in, I have to start you. I can't have you as a backup because everybody's going to ask constantly when the starting quarterback he's not successful, the camera's going to go to you. At post game, the coach is going to be asked, when are you going to play Cam? But I don't know how your arm is. I don't know how healthy you are. I thought of situational football. I did mention your name when Deshaun Watson went down. If I'm the Browns, I at least reach out and just see, gauge your interest. RG3.
And they did not. Yeah.
Yeah. But you said 2 years ago you heard from a team. What team did you hear from?
It was small talk. It was the Panthers trying to get me back. And they didn't know at that specific time Sam Darnold was there. And they were asking me to back up Sam. And my rebuttal to that was, I don't have a problem with being a backup if I have the opportunity to prove that I'm still willing and able to be a starter. And like I said, I've always came from the branch of shoot me straight. And
how many teams do you think you could start for right now?
Right now?
If I gave you the offseason to get ready, how many teams do you think that you could be a starter for?
But honestly, that part right there, Dan, has not been in the equation. Every situation that I've been in, even with New England and going back to Carolina the second time, I never had an off season. Yeah. So I was learning on the fly. So that kind of capped my mental to understand the offense as a whole, to really understand the philosophical approach to why the offensive coordinator is calling these certain type of plays, and also to be around my certain talent. The offseason that I did have with New England, I ended up getting, kind of pushed or shunned aside by Mac Jones, right? So it was so much that happened without people understanding. Josh McDaniels is an unbelievable and a brilliant offensive mind. He never has had my skill set at the quarterback position. And then going back, Joe Brady was there. He had obviously Joe Shiesty, but he didn't have my talent. And then also when I went back to Carolina, Joe Brady got fired 2 weeks in. So we're scrambling. I've been in messed up situations. So me coming
but if I
and
gave you an off season though, Cam.
Correct. You giving me an off season.
How many teams could you start for?
Taking away the Josh Allens, taking away the Patrick Mahomes, taking away the solidified guy, franchise faces, I could compete with them all. Right? So
but that's Washington, yeah. The Giants.
And if I have another platform as far as Funky Friday, if we're keeping it funky, it kind of made me feel a certain type of way that even the Commanders didn't even reach out with everything me and Ron Rivera went through too.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. I wondered about that. Yeah.
His quarterback situation, I know Sam. Sam came through my C1N program 707 team too. So I was open. I came out with a list, for Christ's sake, to say these are the teams that I would do or be a backup for. And yet still nothing. But there's more than half of the league. I would say more than 80% of the teams. When I look at a team like Atlanta, when I look at a team like even with CJ Stroud, not to start, but to see a guy with that skill set, does he need my help? Hell no, he's doing exceptional things right now. But to be a part of that growth process, I would have been willing to be of some type of service to those type of guys.
What are you smoking, by the way, before we say goodbye?
Man, this is an LFD cigar, and I wouldn't have been able to do that on as a sports analyst either. So.
An LFD.
Yes.
Okay.
You got the Padrones, you got the Davidoff, you got the Casa 1910s, you have the My Fathers and whatever. But the next time you're in Atlanta, make sure you give us a heads up, and I'd love to host you and the crew at Fellowship ATL, premium cigar lounge here in Atlanta, man. And that one's gonna be on me. Appreciate you for taking me to school and really putting me on game.
Hey, good luck with it. And
yes,
if I can help, the first step is people who ask for help. And a lot of times former players think they can go into TV and it looks easy, and it's not.
Yes, sir.
If you're smart about it, you use your talents wisely, then then that's the first start. But you got to want it. It's
Yes,
no
sir.
different than wanting to be a great quarterback. You have
Absolutely.
to want this, because there's so many people who want to do it, think they can do it, and you're going to have to prove yourself.
That's a fact. Hey, before we get out of here, Dan, I got to put your stamp on something, right? So as I end things, usually with Funky Friday, as I end things at 4th and 1, we got to do it in unison. So to your camera, you got to raise your hand, one finger, one pinky, one thumb, one love. Appreciate you, my brother.
Thank you, Cam.